Shinn was a deadbeat who was reincarnated in another world and trained by a wizard as an SS rank magician, however in hopes of living a normal life. He enrolls in a magic academy, but just ends up clapping everyone instead. It all started when he reincarnated as a boy to the family of Merlin and Melita, who took him as their grandson, while Merlin taught him magic. Shinn learned them very quickly and began going on dangerous hunting that made Melita worried that he was still too young for this. But Shinn reminded her that he was the main character of this story. One day, Merlin took him for his first demon hunting, and after giving him a prep lecture, Merlin said they now had to find their first demon, surprising Shinn, who asked how they were going to do that. Merlin got into demonstration immediately, and after showing him, he said this needed some level of mastery to pull off. But little bro immediately activated his and spread his magic power across the entire region, mogging Merlin. Merlin became shocked because he never expected he would get it on his first try. Shinn felt an ominous energy deep in the forest and notified Merlin about it, so they rushed over to the location immediately. Seeing the red monster, Shinn got into action immediately before his gramps could stop, and he slew the demon in a few strikes, shocking Merlin, who just stood there looking. Merlin reported the event to others back at home later that night, which left them equally shocked. This made Melita wonder who he really was to be learning magic that fast and was even keeping up with Michael's fighting skills. She concluded that he must be from another world, but Merlin replied that it don't matter where he came from. He saw the boy as his grandson. The next day, Merlin called Shinn to a separate place and told him he was not his real grandpa, but he found him as a jit in the forest after his parents were mauled. They couldn't even identify his parents because they were clapped beyond recognition. However, Shinn was not so bothered about this and told Merlin that he was satisfied to have him as his grandpa and Melita too, leaving the old man emotional. A few years later, they held a feast to celebrate Shinn's entrance into the age he could legally clap. His alleged uncle, Deceive, asked him what he planned to do now that he was a man, but the bozo was just clueless. They suggested some job roles he could take, and he realized that this would be the first time he would earn money for himself and spend it. This fat-faced pig became shocked that he had not even gone shopping before, and Melita blamed Merlin for only teaching the boy magic, and not street lessons. Following this, Shinn took them to a magic training ground far outside town using his teleportation, and Deceive asked him to show the group what he's got. Shinn went hold my beer mode and unleashed a powerful spell that caused a mighty explosion, creating a large hole in the ground and shocking everyone. Melita got pissed like an average Karen, blaming Merlin for not teaching Shinn how to courteous. An old man said he just wanted to know how far his powers could go. Getting back home, they thought that it was not yet safe to send Shinn to the city because of his extraordinary powers and fighting skills, or he would become the target of everyone. However, Deceive suggested that they enroll him in the Magic Academy since the Empire was seeking to expand its military. He assured Merlin that he wouldn't exploit Shinn for military use, but the clueless idiot, Shinn, stupidly asked what a Magic Academy was, and Deceive told him that it was a facility for training magicians. Deceive then revealed that he was actually the king of the kingdom of Earlshide, shocking Shinn because he had always just seen him as his uncle since he visited his grandparents often. He also realized that the other two were royal guards, and Michael, his fighting coach, was a retired knight commander. Deceive explained that his grandpa and grandma once saved him when he was almost deleted as a crown prince during a demon attack. The next day, Shinn and his grandparents left for the capital, and after meeting the butler and the maids in his would-be new home, he set out to have a tour of the city. However, he soon came across some hooligans trying to have their way with a girl, so he stepped in and whooped their backsides. Afterward, the girl thanked him and asked if he was fine, but then, he suddenly saw a pair of huge ripe juicy melons before him, immediately short-circuiting his brain. Following that, the girls introduced themselves as Maria and Cicely, and told him that they were taking the entrance exams into the Magic Academy the following month, surprising Shinn as he also revealed that he would be taking the exams too. After Shinn left them, Maria teased Cicely about Shinn as she observed that she was already moist for him. On the day of the entrance exam, Shinn became surprised as he saw the multitude of students also taking the exam, but he was more excited about seeing Cicely again if he passed the exam. While he checked the notice board for his exam information, this idiot named Kurt got angry for no reason and tried to harass him, but he pulled a quick one on him, making the dude even angrier. He listed his bio as the son of a high-ranking royal official, but Shinn didn't give a flip about that. Prince August appeared at that moment and warned Kurt that trying to use authority over another student was against the royal decree. Kurt left in shame, and Prince August commended Shinn for how he quickly turned that around earlier, but Shinn was clueless about who he was. He then introduced himself as August, the son of the king, shocking Shinn as he realized he was Deceive's son. He replied that they could as well call themselves cousins then, and August laughed in agreement, but Maria and Cicely, watching from afar, wondered why he was talking to the prince so casually like that. They went for the exam after this, and during the practical session, Shinn was paired with some students and was asked to demonstrate their magical abilities. The students were proud of the nonsense they were displaying, but Shinn almost puked at how weak but confident they were. When it was his turn, the examiner asked him to keep his power under control, having heard about him from the king. However, Bro unleashed a terrible attack that almost destroyed the whole building, shocking the examiner and the students, but he said he was still keeping his power under control though. Add a meme that depicts aura farming. The results of the exams soon got released, and Shinn came out on top, leaving him with the responsibility to give a welcome speech entrance ceremony. He immediately got nervous and tried to deflect to August, but August told him that it was the custom of the academy for the top scorer. Meanwhile, Kurt was somewhere else cocking up because his scores came out average as opposed to Shinn's, which made him feel humiliated because this was the same guy that damaged his ego earlier. Getting back home, Shinn decided to clean up the default enchantment on his uniform and overwrite it with superior magic. He got excited at the result and showed his grandma, who was shocked that he could pull off that level of enchantment. The next day, as they dropped him off at school, she told him not to tell anyone about his uniform, but he wasn't sure why she said that. Later, at the entrance ceremony, Shinn was introduced for his welcome speech, and this was when Maria and Cicely realized that he was the hero's son. He went on to deliver his speech like a seasoned speaker, but Kurt just couldn't keep his stress levels under control. Later, after their first class, Maria took Cicely to Shinn, and they told him that there was a guy harassing her because of his family status. Just while they told him this, Kurt started coming like a typical Ken, demanding to know why Cicely was talking to another guy. He tried to grab her, but Shinn hit his disgusting hand away, and Kurt declared that Cicely was his fiancée, so he should stay away from her. Shinn noticed Cicely trembling and told her he would protect her no matter what happened. So she declined Kurt's engagement proposal again, making him very angry that he threatened to have his father fire her father from his office. August came just in time and told him to get his ugly behind off. Following that, Shinn introduced them and two other classmates to his grandparents, and they were all starstruck because they were standing before the famous hero and guru. Several minutes later, Shinn told Merlin and Melita his plan to overwrite the enchantment on Cicely's uniform, but hearing this, Melita switched to detective mode and started interrogating whom she had earlier found suspicious. She asked her if she was worthy of accepting the gift Shinn wanted to give her, since her uniform, with Shinn's magic, would become a national treasure-grade protective gear. Hearing this, Cicely began to cry as she said she had taken advantage of Shinn's kindness, and so she wasn't worthy. She stood up as she apologized and immediately tried to dip, but Melita stopped her, telling her she had passed her test. In her words, if Cicely had accepted without saying anything, she would have thrown her out, but since she told the truth, she would be allowed to have it. Melita eventually hugged her and she cried. Afterward, they all left, except Merlin and Shinn, with Merlin wondering how slow they must be to not have noticed Cicely was trying to use Shinn. Later, Shinn overwrote the enchantment on Cicely's uniform, but they were all shocked at how this was even possible by a fellow student like themselves. The king, who had now arrived by this time, told Shinn they needed to keep this a secret, or it could cause chaos in the empire, as everyone might want to have him for themselves. He later also overwrote the enchantments on the uniforms of the others, except only Maria, who said she'd pass on this. Afterward, he took them to his real home deep in the forest using the teleportation magic, and they realized that he was just using them to aura farm while calling them weak and useless in 1,000 different ways.
Only language you speak is failure!
The next day at school, the homeroom teacher took them on a tour around the school, and afterward, Alice suddenly asked Shinn what study group he would be joining, and he replied that he had not thought of one yet. August cut in at this moment and suggested that, since none of the study groups would be a challenge, why not create his own, shocking him? However, the teacher loved this idea and even offered to be their advisor, which they all liked, not giving Shinn the chance to even say if he wanted to or not. They suggested even more ideas on what the study group would be about, which was already making Shinn frustrated because he didn't have a say in this matter. One of them finally came up with a name, the Ultimate Magic Study Group, and they all bought it immediately.
Oh, hell no!
Meanwhile, that night in the palace, the king was shocked at the increase in demon appearances around the kingdom. His subordinate, Gaster, speculated that based on the happenings, it must be that the demons were artificially induced. But the king thought this was ridiculous. There was no freaking way the increase in demons could be man-made. The old fatso said that these were unusual circumstances, and they need to investigate it immediately. So the king gave the order to enlist the Demon Hunters Society and thoroughly find out what was going on. At the same time, Kurt's father had just been summoned by the king based on Kurt's sin, and he was very mad that he went to look for his son immediately. Kurt was still proving that he deserved the Carole, saying he was a chosen person, and how all this humiliation started when Shinn showed up. He was about to speak trash about the king when his father yelled and smacked his stupid mug to the ground. He then ordered that he be locked inside his room until he knew how best to punish him. The report got to the hearing of Shinn and his squad the next day, and they wondered what had come over him, as he was never like this when they were in their old school. According to Arthur, all this started when Kurt started visiting Professor Schrumm's lab, a creepy teacher who was transferred to their school in their 3rd year. He added that the professor stated that he was exiled from the kingdom to the school, and he always wore an eye patch that covered both eyes since he was blind. However, he took an interest in students with decent magic and invited them to his lab, but they declined his invitations when they noticed something was shady about him, except for Kurt, of course. Meanwhile, Kurt's mom visited Schramm, distressed about her son, and begged him to come help talk sense into him. But when Dude visited Kurt, he went to remove the remaining sense by casting a demon spell on him that instantly turned him into a demonoid. At the academy, Shinn got talking with August, who told him that he need not necessarily walk Maria and Cicely to school anymore since the threat, Kurt, had been taken away. Cicely became sad hearing this, but Shinn said there was no problem walking them to school though, since they were living in the same direction anyway. Cicely jumped for joy as she heard this, and they all teased her for wanting to hop on his meat so badly.
Yeah, boy.
August affirmed that Shinn might just continue walking them since those chicks were hot and were bound to attract thirsty mofos. However, Shinn replied that his magic search would detect it if they were ever in danger. The group was surprised to hear that because that sounded like the calculus level magic, but Shinn explained that demons had a different aura from usual, and he could feel it if they were directing their ill at something. These dudes still didn't understand Jack from what he was talking, so he asked them if they had hunted demons before, to which they said no. He took the opportunity to mock them as usual, revealing that he had started hunting demons since he was immature and even isekai'd a demon bear at a point, shocking them. Later that afternoon, on their way to their next class, Shinn suddenly sensed an ill intent directed at them and wondered where it was coming from. He suddenly saw Kurt, who immediately unleashed a massive inferno at them, but Shinn quickly stepped in with a magic barrier, sustaining some burns while at it, but his body healed instantly. Kurt began to glitch as he became more fierce, making them realize that he was already demonized. Shinn told August to take the others and get out of there immediately while he faced the demonoid. He charged at Kurt immediately while the others ran into hiding, and after a series of exchanges, Shinn managed to land an attack that caused minimal damage, but he was shocked because demonoids weren't supposed to feel pain. Kurt got up and began to cuss at him, which made him realize that he had not fully transformed into a demonoid. Because demonoids didn't have a sense of reasoning to talk, he soon unleashed a powerful lightning on him and thought there might still be a way to save him from transforming completely. However, as he thought of a way to save him, Kurt suddenly began to gather up magical power into himself to create an explosion which could blow up the whole academy. So Shinn quickly got into action. He summoned a magical sword and lunged toward him, ending him in one piece before he could cause an explosion. He got sober afterward because this was his first time isekai'ing a human, and he wondered what was happening. His friends joined him, surprised that he defeated a demonoid. Meanwhile, Schramm was watching from a rooftop, and he considered his experiment successful, but he became interested in who Shinn really was. At the same time, while thinking about what just happened, August walked up to him to ask what he was worried about, and he suddenly asked if it was that easy to become a demonoid. August immediately realized that something was off because, from history, only top-tier magicians could get so caught in their magic and become demonoids. Meanwhile, Kurt had just been accepted into the academy, and there was no way he was capable of that. This made Shinn speculate that it must have been artificially induced, shocking them. He added that his grandpa once told him that demonoids lack their sense of reasoning, but for Kurt, it was quite different because he could still talk, and also he was pretty weak, surprising them. He then concluded that Kurt might have been used in some kind of human experimentation. Afterward, they were called to the palace, and getting there, the king thanked him for eliminating the demonoid, and for this he said Shinn would receive the First Order Merit Award, shocking him. However, Merlin was not pleased with this and asked what the award was for, reminding deceive that he had promised not to use Shinn for political purposes. Deceive replied that the kingdom had once faced a Thanos-level threat when a demonoid once appeared, which put the whole nation into a state of panic and chaos until he and Melita saved the day. However, a demonoid appearing at this time could have sent the nation into another frenzy, but thanks to Shinn, who who immediately handled the situation, bringing calm to the people. Merlin, even at this, was not convinced that Shinn should receive an award, so he wouldn't be the public's target. But the king told him that he had to receive the award since he had achieved the same thing the hero and guru did. Merlin finally agreed, but warned that they would leave the kingdom if Shinn's safety was ever threatened, to which the king promised to protect him at all costs. Everyone started glazing Shinn after this incident, with some girls wondering who owned his meat because they would want to own it for themselves.
Are you sure about that?
Some other students began lobbying for a place in the Ultimate Magic Study Group, and 2 new students were selected. The first was Mark, who was from a Smithy family, and the other Olivia, who belonged to the same lineage as Gordon Ramsay. Shinn asked Mark if he could make weapons, but the dude replied that he was still a bottom feeder in the craft and could only barely forge knives. Shinn told him he would have loved to get a new weapon if he were good, and Mark replied that there was no way he would match Shinn's weapon, which he used in slaying the demonoid. But Shinn told him he only used an ordinary sword, though it was only laced with magic power, which made it possible to slice through anything without force. Hearing this, Mark decided to forge something great then. Meanwhile, outside the city, some dudes from the security bureau visited Shram after learning that he had visited Kurt the day he became demonized. While they asked him some questions about his relationship with his students, Shram managed to give witty answers which the investigators didn't suspect. They even invited him to join the investigation to examine what really happened to Kurt's demonized body. They took him to the capital city, and on their way through a hallway, Shram asked why they were heading to the parade ground though, but the investigator replied that they were only following protocol. However, getting to the parade ground, Shram realized that he had been lured to this place to be caught as the army appeared around him. The investigator then explained that Kurt had made a mistake earlier, which gave his secret out. The king had actually issued a gag order to prevent the nation from knowing the name of the victim, just to protect his family name, but Shram, in their conversation with him, had mentioned Kurt, which he was not supposed to know. This only meant that he knew something about it. Realizing that he had been caught by the low-budget Sherlock Holmes, he laughed hard and revealed that he had used Kurt for an experiment as he prepared to unleash his magic. Meanwhile, Shinn and his friends were passing by just at that time when they suddenly heard a blast through a nearby wall. They suddenly saw a dude with an eye patch, and August identified him as Shram, their old school teacher. One of the guards immediately warned August to run away because this dude was the one behind Kurt's demonization. Hearing this, Shinn got mad and launched an attack immediately, but Shram blocked it with a magic barrier. However, Shinn broke through it with his sword, shocking Shram as he quickly dodged an incoming strike. Shinn retreated and immediately pulled an earthbending technique, but Shram was suspended in the air, shocking him because that wasn't supposed to be in the script. However, Dude launched at him in the air anyway and unleashed a powerful magical attack, revealing Shram's red eyes. Shinn was shocked as he realized that Shram was a demonoid with his sense of reason perfectly intact. Shram became even more sinister and began to talk meanly of humans and how he didn't mind unliving them like chickens. Shinn got angry and sent an attack, but missed, and while Shram thought he was the ultimate final boss of the story, he didn't realize that Shinn was already preparing a massive attack to send him to the Lake of Fire. A massive heat ray suddenly hit him, phasing him into the underworld. The others were shocked that Shinn was able to pull this off, and 2 officials from the palace, surprised to see the reason they came had been handled. They asked him how he did that, and Bro simply explained something that sounded like quantum mechanics, but seeing they weren't getting it, he told them it was all thanks to the anime gods. Meanwhile, outside the city, it was revealed that Shram had somehow managed to escape before Shinn's heavenly punishment hit him, but left an explosive behind as a ruse. Now, he reasoned that he needed to take all the necessary measures to ensure Shinn didn't interfere with his plans. Some days later, Melita called Maria aside secretly and asked what was going on between her grandson and the blue-haired. Maria told her that something romantic was definitely brewing between them, even though Cicely didn't realize that she wanted to clap yet, since this was the first time she was feeling this way toward a boy. The next day, on their way to the beanworks, Mark's family's smithy business, August noticed Shinn was frowning and asked about it. Shinn suddenly stated that Shram might still be alive, shocking August, who then asked how that was so. He explained that he tried the same heat ray blast in the forest and discovered that it didn't leave a sign of an explosion like it did with Shram, which must mean that Shram had deliberately caused an explosion while he escaped to deceive them. Hearing this, August told Shinn to order any weapon he needed at the beanworks, bills on the palace, since he was the only one who could defeat Shram, and he needed to be adequately equipped for it. Getting to the smithy, they met an average-looking crusty man who happened to be Mark's father, and August told him to make whatever Shinn ordered. Meanwhile, in the Blue Sphere Empire's royal castle, a dude named Vest reported to the king about his findings on the Earlshide Kingdom, saying that the empire was currently in commotion because of the infiltration of demons. This amused the king of Blue Sphere, as he thought this was a perfect opportunity to take over Earlshide. Later that day, after Shinn described what he needed to Mark's father, he noticed the smithy had other floors and Mark about it, who told him that they sold other materials and accessories there. Shinn immediately asked Cicely what kind of accessories she wanted, and thinking he was trying to riz her in broad daylight, she became embarrassed only for the clueless idiot called Shinn to say he was thinking enchanting accessories with defensive magic would prove highly effective. The others asked how he could have fumbled that, but he still didn't realize what they were talking about. He took Cicely to the accessories floor though, and asked her to select whatever she wanted, but she asked him to choose for her because she didn't know which one to select, just like every random girl. So Shinn picked a ring for her and, after enchanting it, told her this would make her safe, but Cicely had taken it farther than Shinn imagined. She low-key thought this was a proposal. A few days later, it was the day of the award ceremony, and Shinn was called to the palace hall to receive his award. He walked to the stage looking like this, while everyone clapped for him. After presenting the first order of merit to Shinn, the king announced his promise to Shinn's guardians before everyone and said the day this was breached would be the day Merlin and Melita would take him and depart from the kingdom, never to return. Meanwhile, Shinn was surprised that he actually told everyone about it. On their way back to the academy, Shinn discovered he had now become a celebrity overnight with everyone trying to get on his meat. So he immediately created a gate and got to the academy with that instead. But he stepped out to soft, bouncy melons in front of him and almost jizzed some magical fluid. Meanwhile, Mark and Olivia, who had not seen him use this before, were surprised, and Shinn didn't miss that opportunity to aura farm. He then thought that it might be time to level up the team's magic power due to the recent occurrences, so he gathered them in a class and began lecturing them on the use of magic barriers. He used the opportunity to aura farm again by showing them how powerful his magic barrier was, unlike Maria's weak own. Seeing this, the girls dropped to the ground in moistness like they had been clapped by Johnny. He then told them that they wouldn't get anywhere if they couldn't control that amount of magic power, and because of this, they would start practicing magic control every day. At the same time, in the Blue Sphere Empire, a lady named Miria brought a new report to Shram about the Empire going to war, and he laughed hysterically as though they were all dancing to his tune. Shinn took his friends to meet his grandparents after their class, and they told Merlin that Shinn had been hard on them in his training. Merlin then revealed that what made Shinn special was his ability to visualize the process of magic and not just the result alone, surprising them because they were clueless about what that meant. Merlin then yapped some boring information you shouldn't worry about, and then demonstrated that he had also learned to use the relocation magic thanks to Shinn's directions, shocking Shinn. Merlin finally told all of them that anyone could achieve Shinn's results with adequate technique, visualization, and magic power. Afterward, Melita commended Merlin for his speech and how he had to learn to use the relocation magic just because he wanted to prove that Shinn was not abnormal, like most people thought, and anyone could be like him. Following this, Shinn went to get his weapon from the smithy, and he tried the new innovation of changing the blades without the handle, as one of them had suggested. Seeing this, August asked if they could also use this technologia for the nation's military so weapons could be mass-produced while reducing costs. August then revealed the unexpected truth that Earlshide might be going to war with Blue Sphere, as the nation had been massively preparing for this. Even the students at the academy may be enlisted for the war, but August stated that he wouldn't get Shinn involved in the nation's mess since he was busy handling the demonoids. However, Shinn replied that he wouldn't refrain from joining the war if they were ever in danger because they were his friends and he couldn't do without them. Some days later, the king of Blue Sphere, Harold, received the report that the Earlshide troops were already waiting for them at the border, shocking him because they were not supposed to know the Blue Sphere Empire was planning a secret attack on their kingdom. He got really vexed and asked the guards where Zest was, but King Harold was told that he and his scouting party had gone missing since the day before. Hearing this, Harold realized he had been deceived, and he swore to feed Zest to the Isekai gods if he ever laid his hands on him. Just then, another report came in that the imperial capital was already under the siege of demons, shocking him, and he commanded them to retreat immediately to protect the capital from being taken over by the demons. Meanwhile, in the camp of the Earlshide army, these two commanders were planning how to pursue the Blue Sphere army as they retreated till they wiped them out. However, a soldier suddenly came in with the report that the advanced guards were being attacked by demons. The commanders were shocked and wondered if the Blue Sphere army's retreat was being aided by demons. At the same time, there was a rampage of demons within the Blue Sphere Empire with Shram and Miria at its core. Miria had now become a demonoid with crimson eyes, like she was high on cheap crack. Shrum asked her how she felt to be a demonoid, and she replied that she felt more powerful than ever. Several days later, Harold returned to the imperial capital in haste, and just as he commanded his soldiers to make sure they handled the situation in one piece, he entered his throne room only to find Shrum sitting there. Shrum told him he had come to do the honors of sending him to the afterlife personally. He immediately activated a magic circle underneath him and sucked his soul out with his evil spell. About 3 days later, the two commanders from Earlshide visited the Blue Sphere imperial capital and were shocked by the sight of the destruction, wondering what had happened. Just then, Shrum suddenly appeared and told them he had been expecting them. He thanked them for trimming down the number of the imperial forces, as it made it easy for him to wipe them out. They realized it was Shrum who instigated the war, and while they prepared to go against him, they suddenly saw a large group of demonoids. They returned to Earlshide 3 days later and reported this to the king, which left everyone wondering what to do next. The next day at school, the homeroom teacher declared that, concerning the ongoing situation, the Magic Academy students also have to join the battle in protecting the Empire against Shrum. After the class, Shinn noticed his friends were not that pleased with the development and asked them about it. They told him about the long-lasting beef and competition between the two academies, as each one thought they were better than the other. Shinn tried to calm them down by telling them they ought to compliment one another, but they replied that he could say that because he was both good at magic and swordsmanship. They then asked who taught him swordsmanship, and when he told them it was Michael, they almost melted. Shinn was taught magic by the hero, item enchantment by the guru, and swordsmanship by the sword saint. They all thought at this point that he was specially loved by the plot gods while they were just NPCs. The next day, the magic students met the upcoming knights, but the knights still thought they were better than the magic guys. On their way to the training ground, Shinn tried to do his motivational speech crap again, saying the two teams needed each other, but the arrogant knights told him to stop tripping. He asked if they had fought a demon before, but they got pissed thinking he just wanted to Aura farm because he had defeated a demonoid before. So, Shinn, in order to teach their stubborn skulls the whole point of the training, stated that when they came across a demon, the knight training students would go first to combat to prove what they've got, and they agreed. Getting deep into the forest, Shinn suddenly sensed a demon close by and immediately alerted the knights. A demonized boar soon appeared, and the knights got into their fighting stance. How the monster used their behinds to wipe the floor and was almost sending two of them to the shadow realm, when Shinn quickly unsheathed his sword and attacked the boar, harvesting its head in one blow. The knights were shocked and, learning their lessons, they apologized for being jerks all along. Cicely came to heal their wounds with her healing spell, and the guys immediately fell head over heels for her, seeing how heavy her milkages were, making Shinn jealous. Following that, the dudes started to treat Cicely like a princess, while Shinn had almost added 10 pounds from fuming in jealousy. August told him to go and cop his girl like a real man, but homie was just a coward in women's affairs. Just then, Seed told him to stop goofing around as new demons were heading toward them. Shinn checked this and realized that there were many, and before they could think of what to do, two of the knights ran toward them, warning them to run because they were about 100 of them. Shocking them, Shinn said they should leave it to him, and they immediately agreed since they were only going to hold him back after all. As the monsters drew closer, looking like they were rabid, Shinn started cooking a powerful attack and unleashed it, wiping them all out at once. The knights were shocked to see and immediately regretted trash-talking him earlier. One of them, named Miranda, went to apologize for disrespecting him. She also apologized to Cicely for talking trash to her boyfriend, instantly making both of them embarrassed. On their way back, a bear demon suddenly emerged from the forest, and the knights and the magic students worked together to eliminate it. The two seniors, seeing this, were pleased that they were already learning how to combine magic and the sword. Then, Seed walked up to ask Shinn how the prince and his other friends had managed to make so many improvements in using magic. Shinn replied that he formed a study group, and they are members of the group. Seed realized that Shinn was giving them special training, but Shinn replied that he wouldn't call it special since he was only teaching them the same way his grandpa taught them. Hearing this, Seed asked to join the group too, so he could learn how Shinn did his magic, but August cut in, saying that would not be possible, because Seed was in the military and that would mean militarizing Shinn's power, which could lead to some diplomatic issues. August further said they didn't want everyone having access to Shinn's level of magic, because if that happened, the world wouldn't be destroyed by demons, but by humans themselves. He added that he had told the other members of the group to keep this power from spreading out into the world. Seek, however, told Shinn to just explain how Merlin taught him, and August told him it was just simply learning to increase the amount of magic he could control. That's all. Seed found this too basic. But August called Maria and Cicely over and told them to create magical barriers as Shinn had taught them. They immediately activated magical barriers, which shocked Sieg as he saw how thick they were. However, the girls told him this was still thin compared to Shinn's own, and that they still had a long way to go. Sieg then said he would practice his magic control too. Just then, Miranda came to meet Shinn again to thank him for handling the bear and the boar for them. He told her not to worry about it. Meanwhile, for the two other teams, the Magic Academy students in the first team managed to establish the fact that the overconfident upcoming knights needed the help of the magic. However, those in the other group only managed to mess everything up since the magic students also only wanted to show off. But their magic blew up in their faces. Following that, Shinn felt down, and noticing this, one of them asked what was wrong. August then broke the tea that for those who were in the Ultimate Study Magic group would be placed under national supervision after their graduation, and might be required to join a special unit directly under him. This could make them the target of other lands. Shinn felt sad that he had changed the trajectory of their lives, but they told him not to worry about it, as they were more than happy they were a part of this, shocking Shinn as he was not expecting them to be happy. August then told him that as long as they didn't misuse their powers, they could become the first anime Avengers in history. Hearing this, they suggested they needed more training to become stronger since they would be joining a special unit. They went to train after this, and during the training, August gathered all of them, saying he had important information he had to tell them, which had not been revealed to the public yet. They were surprised he wanted to reveal the state secret to them, but he told them that they were no longer part of the general population since they would become an important part of the Empire's forces once the war with the demonoids began. August then went on to reveal that the demonoids had been causing a disaster, and at this point, the nations must join forces or they won't be able to stand against them. Then August dropped the main T, saying the demonoids were increasing in number each time they attacked, which meant they must be turning their victims into demonoids like themselves, shocking Shinn and others. Due to the development, Shinn suggested they have a training camp so they could get stronger in preparing for the impending battle. Back at home, Shinn told his grandparents about this, and his Karen of a grandma yelled at him for wanting to gather boys and girls of age under the same roof. She then said she would be coming along too to keep an eye on them, and hearing this, Merlin said he would also go if Melita was going. The next day, they set out for the camping location, Cicely's hometown, and on their way, they sensed some medium-sized demons and turned it into a sport for who Eastek hide the most demons. This amused Merlin because they were all getting stronger, but Melita thought they were doing something terrible to other people's yungeons. They finally reached Cicely's hometown that night, and they were warmly welcomed by her family. Following that, Merlin and the boys got in the hot spring, and while they aired their balls in the hot water, he began to appreciate them for being Shinn's friends, because that dude was a lonely bozo with no social skills. However, August, ever the humble guy, said meeting Shinn made him comfortable because this was the first time he had a friend who treated him like an equal. The other guys also mentioned how great Shinn was to have become friends with lowly idiots like themselves. Hearing this, Shinn turned to his grandpa and thanked him for raising and training him, as he wouldn't have become the man he was now if not for him. Merlin immediately got teary, but while the guys were having a confession time, the ladies were talking about melon sizes and stuff.
Women.
Things soon get really cultured as they squeeze one another's plots. The training camp began fully the next day, and seeing their rapid improvements, Melita commented that they might put the Imperial Magic Division out of business. But Shinn said there was still a long way to go, as combating the demonoids would be a major fight, and even he had to level up his magic. Hearing this, they all got scared and dipped. Following that, Shinn decided to mock them with his magic power again, and seeing the massive destruction he caused, Melita came to give him a whooping, asking him why he used that much power. They soon called the training a day, and as they left, August told Shinn to get him back to the palace because he needed to gather more info about the demonoids. Getting to the palace, they suddenly found a princess named Ellie waiting for the prince. She began to complain about him not returning early, which made Shinn wonder who she was. August revealed that she was his fiancée, shocking Shinn as he had never mentioned he had a chick prepared for him already. Ellie came closer to greet Shinn, but August asked her what she wanted, and she accused him of leaving May and her alone while he went camping. May, August's sister, appeared just then and said that his brother was awful to have let her miss the opportunity of seeing Melita, whom he knew she had been longing to meet. Shinn was surprised and tried to calm her by being the nicer dude. Then August asked May and Ellie what they were doing there, to which they replied that they had decided to join them at the camp. August got pissed and immediately clarified that they were not there playing softball. However, when they tabled this before the king, he told August to allow them come with him, since Merlin and Merida were there, and would be gating to the location with Shinn's magic so there would be no problem. they returned to the camp with Shinn's magic, and the girls were surprised that something like this was possible. Meanwhile, August informed Ellie that he wouldn't be available for a couple of moments as this was a magic training ground, and she replied that she wouldn't get in the way. She had only come to make sure there was no pest around him. Shinn was amused by this and asked her if she didn't like seeing other women around August, but he was shocked when Ellie revealed that the pest she was referring to was him. She stated that everything August had been about recently was Shinn, which was making her jealous. Shinn found it embarrassing that she thought they had some sort of bromance going on. August revealed that he still loved to clap him cheeks, but seemed to be at rest being with Shinn, his new friend. However, Ellie started to throw tantrums because the only thing her ears heard was that she was causing trouble for him, so he had to find rest in someone else. August calmed her with some Riz lines. Settling at a restaurant, August, still trying to reassure his fiancée, revealed that Shinn had a girl, shocking Shinn himself as he wondered who was dating him without his knowledge. August revealed that he knew the tension that was going on between the two of them, which could mean nothing other than that they loved each other. Shinn, the slow idiot, asked how he was sure Cicely liked him, but August asked him if he would continue to be slow and not take action. Following that, Shinn became very embarrassed when he saw Cicely, which made Ellie and May realize that this was who August was talking about, so they teased him about it, making him more embarrassed. Later that evening, May finally met her idol, Melita, and seen her tender attitude. Melita said she wasn't like Shinn, who was all over the place, and she had to hold his hand all the time. The others added that it definitely wasn't easy training someone like him. Everyone found a way to roast Shinn's upbringing, but reaching Cicely's turn, she told him not to worry. They would love their Yunjins well, shocking everyone. She soon realized what she had said and became embarrassed as she ran off. After that, August walked up to him and said he would have to be a fool not to catch that cue. Realizing that Cicely liked him, he met her later in a gazebo and had some cringy moments before Shinn finally told her he loved her. She said she loved him too, and then he asked her to be his girlfriend. Then came the part where they kissed. But before they could swap any spit, they got interrupted by their friends who had been lurking in the bush. They all teased them both, and Shinn officially announced that they were now clap buddies with strings attached. However, August, after congratulating him on his new clapping adventure, told him not to get carried away because there were still demons to clap. The next day, they continued their training with Shaolin volleyball and almost injured themselves, making Melita rebuke them. However, Merlin thought they were doing a good job and told them to continue, but Shinn, who brought the idea in the first place, was already worked up because he never expected they would take it this far. After the training that night, they all spent time talking, but Shinn suddenly noticed his grandma coming, and they quickly hid under their blankets, which surprised Melita to see them all asleep because she thought she had heard voices earlier. Shinn and Cicely happened under the same blanket, and the chick was almost reaching her peak, surprising Shinn. He soon realized that his hand was on her plushies, instantly causing him to scream. Melita found them in this compromising position and yelled at him for thinking he could now do the boombaya because he was in a relationship. One random morning while Shinn was out flexing his magic muscles, Cicely cornered him with that look on her face and basically said, "Yo, we're getting engaged, so you better come meet my dad before he clocks in for work." Shinn, being the confident wizard simp he was, nodded like a bobblehead and dragged his clueless self over to Cicely's house. Her parents were chill. They gave their blessing faster than a TikTok trend dies, and Cicely turned into a tomato out of embarrassment. They got back to camp, where everyone was sweating buckets and training, blasting spells like they were trying to one-up a Michael Bay movie. Ellie stood there with her jaw on the floor, wondering how these maniacs hadn't blown up the whole planet yet. Just then, Shinn said some nonsense about that being just the warm-up, and Ellie nearly passed out from shock. What? Grandpa popped in to roast Ellie and May about wanting to watch, and then he told them to try magic themselves. Ellie noped out faster than a bad Tinder date, but May got hyped and actually pulled it off, making Grandpa nearly cry tears of pride. Meanwhile, over in the Empire's capital, everything looked like Fallout 76. Buildings reduced to sad piles of rubble and despair hanging in the air thicker than expired milk. Shram basically asked Miria for the tea on how screwed the Empire was. When she told him everyone was starving and miserable, Shram looked ready to start a dance party, saying his evil plan was right on schedule. Back at camp, Shinn decided to try out a new spell. The squad threw up their shields like he was about to nuke them all, but Shinn told them to chill because it wasn't offensive magic this time. He then made a rock float into the air, acting like it was some groundbreaking magic trick. The gang still freaked out and called him amazing, even though their brains clearly short-circuited trying to understand anything he explained. Then Shinn flexed harder, cast the spell on himself, and started flying around like an overpowered Harry Potter, leaving everyone speechless. August just shook his head and told Shinn he would stop amazing him, while Sicily simped hard, calling Shinn incredible for the millionth time. Later that day, Shinn and Sicily did the whole engagement announcement round 2 with the grandparents, and the old folks decided to air out Shinn's origin story. They told Sicily's family he was adopted, worried it might cause drama. Sicily's dad basically shut that down, saying they didn't care where he came from. They liked him because he treated Sicily right. Everyone cried fake tears of joy. Shinn promised to protect Sicily forever, and the whole thing looked like a sappy romance special. Fast forward to the next day, the squad suited up in their new drip, magic-enhanced uniforms, stronger than half the national treasures in the kingdom. Shinn explained the enchantments like he was selling nifs, promising they'd boost their defense and power. The crew were hyped but also freaked out when Shinn told them they'd be going toe-to-toe with upper-class demonoids. May and Ellie whined about being left out, but August explained it was real combat training with big monsters and their fragile little heads might get squashed. Shinn gave May a magic phone to stop her from sulking, but Granny caught wind of this new tech and scolded Shinn for basically inventing magical smartphones without a permit. Ignoring the scolding, Shinn led the team out, and Sicily got instant goosebumps sensing a massive cursed lion lurking nearby. Shinn split the group and sent the first wave to yeet the monster out of existence, which they did with one attack so strong the poor beast called his attack a prank. The squad went full anime montage mode, nuking every cursed creature in sight like they were on a mission for demon genocide. August patted Shinn on the back and teased him about the engagement party, while Shinn just grinned like a goober. Finally, the day came. Shinn looked clean in his suit, Sicily wore her dress, and her mom escorted them into the engagement ceremony while everyone cheered like they just got free iPhones. Even the king showed up to clap and nod approvingly. Later, the whole squad finally figured out how to float like they were auditioning for a budget Harry Potter remake. They were having the time of their lives pretending to be airborne when everyone discovered that Shinn had been basically carrying their useless selves with levitation magic while they flapped around with wind spells. Shinn was out here feeling proud that these clowns had mastered flying when he was doing all the heavy lifting. May started whining about wanting to zoom around the sky too. Then Shinn whipped out some knockoff walkie-talkie device to call these flying disasters back down to Earth. His friends were glazing this basic communication tool, claiming it would be perfect for the prince's coronation ceremony because apparently they'd never heard of a microphone before. The scene switched to the demonoid's haunted mansion where Shrom was getting updates that made his day. His assistant dropped the tea that the last city had officially eaten dirt and every town and village in the Imperial region was now a ghost town. She mentioned how Zest's demon squad had been playing highway robbery with the caravans, cutting off all the food supplies like they were running some twisted meal prep service. This assistant was low-key having second thoughts about her boss's methods, wondering why Shrom was going full supervillain mode when all these innocent people were getting caught in the crossfire. They rolled up to the throne room where Shrom decided to give his followers a motivational speech that would make a pyramid scheme jealous. He told his crew that thanks to their hard work, they had successfully turned the empire into a dumpster fire, which was apparently their biggest win yet. His followers started cheering like they just won the lottery and were kissing his feet with praise. Then this man hit them with the plot twist of the century, asking what they should do next since his original goal of destroying the empire was complete and he was basically unemployed now. His followers looked like their brains had blue screen and suggested they should keep the momentum going by invading neighboring lands. Shrom responded like a bored Yunjin, asking why they wanted to do something as basic as that. They pitched the idea of starting their own cursed monster kingdom with their massive army, but Shrom shut them down faster than a Wi-Fi connection during a storm, telling them they could chase their dreams but not to drag him into their delusions. One follower got salty and said he'd do it himself, and Shrom basically told him he should have had that energy from the beginning, and that he couldn't care less about their choices. After Shrom gave the remaining group permission to do whatever they wanted because he was apparently running a democracy now, a large chunk of his army dipped. His deputy asked if he was really cool with letting all these people bounce, and Shrom confirmed he was completely unbothered since he'd already achieved his main character moment of bringing down the empire. Myriad decided to get nosy and asked why he had such an intense beef with the empire, especially since she'd heard he used to be a duke who was one step away from becoming emperor. Shrom realized he'd never spilled this tragic backstory and figured it was story time. He revealed that way back when his name was Oliveira. About 2 years ago, he was living his best life as a wholesome farming enthusiast. Turns out this man was single-handedly revolutionizing agriculture and creating jobs in rural areas. When his colleague asked why he was being so nice to regular people, Shrum explained his origin story about how he used to think nobles should run everything until he traveled abroad and got his mind blown by a foreign country that treated everyone like actual human beings instead of having a slavery system, and where even common people were living comfortably instead of struggling to survive. The flashback continued with him chilling in his mansion library when his pregnant wife, Rhea, walked in and suggested he take a break. She was worried about his health since he was grinding so hard for his people, but Shrum flipped it back on her, saying she needed to focus on her health more than him since their unborn midget was their greatest treasure. Meanwhile, in another location, some salty noble named Richmond was having a secret meeting with other jealous aristocrats. One of them suggested summoning Oliveira to the capital because he was becoming too much of a threat to their comfortable lifestyle. These nobles were having a collective meltdown because common people were leaving their regions to work under Oliveira's better conditions. Richmond was spitting facts about how if Oliveira kept contributing financially to the empire, he'd become the most powerful person in the country and eventually become emperor. Richmond hatched a plan to keep Oliveira trapped in the capital using any excuse they could manufacture. Back at Oliveira's house, he was celebrating after receiving a letter from the other nobles saying they finally wanted to hear his ideas. His wife congratulated him but was suspicious about why they suddenly changed their tune and wanted to know what was really going on. He explained that their recent tax revenue drops had gotten the nobles' attention, and if his contributions kept increasing, it might threaten their titles and force them to actually do something productive for once. He read that they were planning a meeting in the capital soon and wanted him to guide them in regional management. His wife asked if he was sure it wasn't dangerous, pointing out that some nobles saw him as a major threat and might be plotting something sinister. He reassured her that he was basically untouchable because of his magical abilities and his experience hunting demonoids when he was younger. After he left for his journey, his wife watched from the window, praying nothing terrible would happen to him. In the village, people were starting to panic because someone had gone missing, and this was the third disappearance in a pattern that was getting scary. The problem was that all the missing people were women and jits, and this wasn't just happening in one area but across multiple regions. Right on cue, a group of military police from the capital showed up and started interrogating the villagers about the recent kidnappings. When the villagers confirmed that kidnappings had indeed been happening, the officers pretended to be shocked but told them to keep their voices down while revealing they had intel that the kidnapped people were being sold as slaves. This was all part of Richmond's master plan to frame Oliveira by kidnapping women and youngjins from the village and pinning it on him, then sending police to make accusations while Oliveira wasn't there to defend himself. The villagers bought into the lie completely. Meanwhile, Oliveira had decided to head home early because he missed his wife too much to stay away. Richmond was putting the final touches on his scheme to eliminate Oliveira permanently. He loaded some kidnapped women into a carriage with Oliveira's crest plastered on it and had the farmers discover them as evidence. The farmers lost their minds with rage and formed an angry mob with torches, marching straight to Oliveira's house. When they arrived, they set his house on fire, isekaiing his wife in the process. Oliveira returned to his burning home and was devastated by what he found. He discovered his wife's body and broke down crying, asking the people around him if this was his reward for treating them well, to have them murder his wife and unborn rat. The farmers responded that he had kidnapped the village women, and that's when Oliveira realized the whole thing was an elaborate setup designed to destroy him. His grief transformed into pure rage as he swore to annihilate the kingdom and everyone in it. He unleashed a devastating spell that sent all the villagers to meet their maker in seconds. That was Shrum's tragic villain origin story. The scene returned to Zest, who was feeling depressed because Shrum had lost his purpose in life and had nothing left to motivate him. Zest ordered someone nearby to gather the demonoids that had abandoned them and maintain their strength for whatever came next. The action shifted to the kingdom, where the king was officially crowning August as the new crown prince in what should have been a celebration. But naturally, a knight burst through the doors like he was announcing the apocalypse, shouting that a cursed beast army was approaching their location. Fear spread through everyone present faster than gossip in a high school hallway. But August stepped up and spoke loudly to assure everyone he could handle the situation like the main character he was trying to be. He told the crowd that they had specialized teams trained to fight demonoids under Shinn, who was the grandson of the two legendary heroes and had earned the title of Demon Slayer. Shinn delivered a motivational speech to calm the panicking crowd, telling them not to be afraid because nothing could harm them on his watch. The crowd started cheering for Shinn with pure excitement, completely forgetting their previous terror. Shinn decided this was the perfect moment to name his team the Ultimate Magicians. Then Shinn decided to flex on the entire crowd by casting flight magic on all his friends, turning them into a budget Air Force squadron soaring through the sky. When the crowd witnessed this aerial circus act, they lost their collective minds with excitement, suddenly feeling like they had VIP protection from these discount Avengers. The scene shifted to the cursed beast army approaching the castle. The people and guards standing on the castle walls took one look at this massive army and probably started updating their wills. The commander started barking orders for everyone to get into defensive positions, while sending one soldier to span the kingdom of Earlsade with desperate SOS messages. Unfortunately, reinforcements were going to take their sweet time arriving. Meanwhile, Shinn was flying around with his squad, having a conversation with August, where he was throwing a tantrum about the group name situation. He was big mad that when put on the spot to name their team, his brain had completely failed him, and he blurted out something embarrassing that was now spreading across the entire kingdom like a bad meme. One of his friends tried to cheer him up by pointing out they were almost at the border, and that while a carriage trip would have taken them days, they'd made it in just a few hours thanks to their flying abilities. Maria was having pre-battle anxiety about facing the demonoids, but Shinn played therapist and reassured her that she was way stronger than those monsters now. He then turned to Cicely and gave her the medic role, telling her to focus on healing the injured while instructing the rest of his friends to go absolutely feral on the demonoids with everything they had. Inside the kingdom of Swede, complete chaos was unfolding as a woman was running for her life while carrying a rat, being chased by demonoids who were treating this like some twisted game of tag, but they surrounded her like they were planning the world's most horrifying group hug. The girl with her was absolutely terrified and started crying. That's when Shinn and one of his friends swooped in, sending one of the beasts flying for several meters. The beast buddy got absolutely pressed and started yelling about how Shinn had no idea what he'd just done and that he wouldn't get away with it. This monster pulled out his weapon and started trash-talking, saying a mere human couldn't do anything to demonoids. Completely unaware he was about to get reality checked, he was gearing up to use his magic against Shinn, but when he saw the absolutely ridiculous amount of power Shinn was gathering, he probably started regretting his life choices before Shinn sent him to meet his ancestors. Shinn decided to add insult to injury by mocking the defeated cursed beast. He then checked on the woman and her mini, asking if they were okay and needed help. They assured him they were fine and wanted to know who he was and what they were doing there. He explained they were back up from the kingdom of Earlsade and told them they could leave without anyone bothering them. After they departed, Shinn looked around at the destruction in the city and got absolutely furious at whoever was responsible for this mess. The scene switched to August, who had found himself a dramatic high vantage point to address the citizens of the Swede Kingdom like he was running for political office. He introduced himself as Crown Prince August of the Earlside Kingdom and declared that they'd arrived with enough power to protect everyone. He told the people they could finally feel safe because his crew would team up with the royal guards to drive the demonoids out of the city like unwanted party crashers. Then he turned his attention to the demonoids and delivered what was basically a threat wrapped in royal language, telling them their situation was about to get really bad because they had the demon slayer hero Shinn on their side. When the people heard this announcement, they got so hyped that they probably forgot they were in the middle of a crisis. The king was watching August with pure pride, feeling relieved that the cavalry had finally arrived. Next, Shinn started playing team captain and assigning roles to his friends. He asked Cicely to go rescue the injured people in the city, and she agreed while promising to save as many as possible. Meanwhile, one of the demonoids was lurking around, observing Shinn and probably having an existential crisis about the extent of his power. Two of Shinn's friends decided to confront one of the demonoids, who immediately started roasting them by saying he didn't know he'd be fighting a bunch of Yunjins. One of the girls got so offended she was ready to throw hands, but her friend Lynn had to grab her and remind her that she couldn't handle situations when she was emotional, especially when facing a cursed monster. The girl realized she'd almost made a rookie mistake and promised to fight properly from now on, but Lynn hit her with the ultimate plot twist by revealing she'd already taken the monster down while mixing sand with water to finish him off. Quickly, right then, they heard a knight screaming bloody murder nearby. When they investigated, they found one of the demonoids torturing the poor guy. But the two girls quickly intervened and eliminated the monster faster than you could say girl power. Then two more headed off to face additional demonoids and also defeated them without breaking a sweat. The action shifted to some demons heading toward the hospital, where Cicely was playing field medic for the wounded, planning to turn the place into a massacre site. But Shinn had seen this coming from a mile away and had already stationed two of his friends to guard the hospital with their lives. They managed to defeat the demons easily, proving that Shinn's strategic planning was just as overpowered as his magic. Meanwhile, Shinn was out there being an absolute menace, holding back the demonoids and eliminating them left and right without letting a single one escape. None of them could do anything against him, and they were probably wondering if they accidentally picked a fight with a final boss. The demonoid who'd been observing Shinn was having a complete meltdown at witnessing his ridiculous power levels and had absolutely no idea how to deal with someone this broken. None of them could even attempt to fight him because Shinn's magical energy was off the charts. Meanwhile, August and Maria, who were tag-teaming one of the demon judges and trying to interrogate him for information, but he was being completely uncooperative. Maria tried to land a quick attack, but it was basically useless. The demonoid fought back against Maria, but her shield managed to protect her from getting turned into paste. This made Maria absolutely furious, so she attacked with everything she had, but the monster dodged it. August looked at Maria, and they had one of those silent communication moments before deciding to coordinate their attacks. They started launching synchronized strikes that broke through the magical barrier around the monster. Just as the creature was about to say something important, he discovered his heart had been pierced from behind, making him realize he'd been outplayed completely. At this point, King Swede was finally able to breathe a little easier and commented that it looked like the battle was wrapping up. The perspective shifted to Zest, who was watching the entire battle from a safe distance like he was binge-watching an action movie, and admitted that he needed to completely reconsider his strategy after witnessing Shinn's absolutely ridiculous power level. Zest decided the smart move was to gather all the demonoids and retreat before things got worse, but Miria apparently didn't get the memo about strategic withdrawal because she wanted to throw hands with Shinn. She suddenly knelt at the gate in front of her and shoved it aside like it was made of paper, declaring that she wanted to see what these humans could do against her, clearly not having learned anything from watching her allies get demolished. The scene returned to Sicily, who was playing real-life medic in the middle of this war zone, treating what felt like half the kingdom's injured population, but somehow managing to heal them all. Suddenly, a desperate woman approached her, begging Sicily to heal her husband immediately because apparently this was now a medical emergency within a medical emergency. When Sicily arrived at the scene, she found the woman's husband bleeding out worse than a horror movie extra, in an absolutely terrible condition. The woman was pleading with Sicily to save him. Sicily agreed to treat the man because she wasn't about to let someone die on her watch. At the same time, Shinn was having his mind blown by Miria's magical strength. Miria was gearing up to attack them again, but just in the nick of time, the two young girls showed up and managed to block her strike. They started screaming at the soldiers behind them to evacuate immediately or else they'd just become dead weight in this fight. The battle escalated with everyone launching magical attacks left and right, and Alice got so carried away that she knocked down an entire building with her magical power. Before Alice could continue her demolition spree, Miria struck her from behind like a coward. However, Miria wasn't done being a menace and intervened again, defeating Alice and using her as a human shield so Lynn couldn't attack her. Miria then decided to add insult to injury by mocking their fighting style, calling it weak, which was probably the last thing they needed to hear while getting their butts kicked. Meanwhile, the monster who'd been stalking Shinn noticed reinforcements arriving and wondered if that was Lord Zest. But when he tried to rally a group of monsters, they got annoyed and started questioning whether they really needed to follow orders. Before one of them could finish complaining, he got attacked and eliminated, and the culprit was Shinn, who apparently had zero patience for monster politics. The rest of the group tried to escape from Shinn and bolted out of the city faster than people leaving a bad movie. But Shinn was absolutely determined and kept attacking them even while they were running, managing to take down most of them. However, a small number managed to escape, and just as he was about to finish them off, he noticed a powerful attack happening inside the city and realized he needed to get back there immediately. At that moment, Miria still had Alice trapped while two of their friends tried to help after watching this disaster unfold from a distance. When they decided to intervene, Miria easily defeated them, proving that good intentions don't always translate to good results. She was about to finish them all off when she saw Shinn standing in front of her, ordering her to stop immediately with the authority of someone who was absolutely done with her nonsense. When Shinn saw his friends lying on the ground injured, he got so angry he probably started seeing red and wanted to send Miria to meet her maker immediately. Lynn woke up from her unconscious state and warned Shinn to be careful because this girl wasn't some amateur when it came to magic. He reassured Lynn by telling her not to worry since he wasn't a novice either, then told Yuri to take care of the others while he handled the main threat. Shinn started attacking Miria, and it was obvious from the beginning that he had the upper hand in this fight like he was the final boss, and she was just another mini-boss. Miria realized she was outmatched and tried to find any opportunity to exploit, eventually spotting some of Shinn's friends trying to help him. She took advantage of this distraction, attacked them all at once, and got them out of her way so she could escape like the tactical coward she was. Miria, apparently deciding that if she couldn't win, she'd at least cause maximum damage, wanted to blow up the entire area. When Shinn noticed her destructive plan, he ordered one of his friends to create a magical barrier to protect everyone else from the explosion. After the attack ended, everyone was fine, but Miria had managed to escape, proving that sometimes the bad guys do get away. After everything was over, they had a post-battle discussion about Miria, agreeing that she was genuinely strong and possibly a former soldier or even a hunter, making them wonder what the actual purpose of this attack had been in the first place. They decided to start hunting for the demonoids. The scene shifted to the group that had managed to escape from the demonoids, including the boy who'd been observing Shinn like a creepy stalker. He talked with Miria and learned that Zest had wanted her to create an opportunity for him, which explained why this whole thing felt like an elaborate setup. The demonoid was upset because Shinn and his friends had way more power than expected, and they'd lost many soldiers in the battle, making this a massive tactical failure. At that moment, everyone noticed that Shrom had been watching everything from above, observing the entire situation from the beginning. Shinn and August then went to check on the injured people, where they found Cicely still struggling to heal the woman's husband despite trying her absolute hardest. When she realized there was nothing more she could do, she started crying and apologized to the woman, admitting that she couldn't help him and that healing magic couldn't cure everything, which was probably the worst thing to hear in that moment. That's when Shinn appeared and told Cicely she wouldn't be able to help the man and that she should let him handle it. When Shinn started healing the man, he was surprised that the guy was still alive thanks to Cicely's healing magic keeping him stable. After working on him for a while, he managed to heal all the man's wounds and stabilize his breathing. When the man's wife heard this news, she was absolutely overjoyed and thanked Shinn for what he'd done for her husband, probably feeling like she'd witnessed a miracle. After some time, Shinn and his group went to meet with the King of Sweden for what was basically a diplomatic debriefing session. August asked the king about something that was bothering him regarding the demonoid attack, pointing out that some of the demonoids had been present during the Empire's attack, but then disappeared immediately afterward. August suspected this attack had been a distraction, but there hadn't been any other attacks anywhere else, which made the whole thing confusing. He then told the king he wanted to form an alliance between their two countries and create a unified fighting front, and the king agreed to discuss this further. Shinn and his friends then returned to their kingdom and received a hero's welcome from the people and guards. August had a conversation with his father and told him he had a report about the incident that needed to be shared. After they settled in the main room, the king understood that Sweden had accepted their alliance offer. August asked his father to let him be their special envoy to other countries, arguing that as a prince and member of the Allied forces, it would be easy for him to sit at the negotiation table, and his father agreed to this plan. Shinn then talked to his grandparents, who told him he also needed to go with August to see the world freely, probably thinking this would be good experience for him. The scene shifted to the Monster Kingdom, where Shrom was talking to Zest and the rest of his allies, asking them if he hadn't warned them before to leave Shinn alone. They apologized for what they'd done, admitting they'd completely messed up, but he responded by asking why they were apologizing since he'd wanted them to do this from the start, revealing this had all been part of his master plan. Finally, they showed the king bidding farewell to August and Shinn as they also said goodbye to their grandparents before embarking on their diplomatic mission. After they finished their goodbyes, August told Shinn it was time to go, and Shinn used his flying magic to take them into the sky immediately, looking forward to whatever adventures awaited them. If you enjoyed this recap, smash the like button and comment clap in the comments section. Also subscribe to the channel if you're yet to for more action plot-filled adventures. If you want another anime recap like this, watch this video right here.